Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. Today we will cover qTest and we will also have a look at the parameters, where do they fit, how do we create them, how do we use them in our project, and how do we basically fit them while we're testing and while we're creating our test cases. First and foremost, however, I want to present myself. Um, my name is Federico Tassinari. I'm a Tricentis training architect. I joined Tricentis about 2.5 years ago. I've been helping co-writing the qTest course that you see online. Maybe some of you have taken as well. Um, First of all, I would like to spend a couple of minutes going through what we will cover today so that the expectations are pretty clear. And also, I would like to go through, what we will not cover today, as sometimes people might expect certain things to be covered, but we won't have the time, unfortunately. So first of all, what we will cover, we will basically create a manual testing project from scratch. I'll bring you through the steps that you will have to go through, from creating your releases, managing your requirements, creating new ones, creating test cases that are then satisfying those requirements. We will also then see how to approve those test cases, how to filter them. We will see how to generate test runs, how to run them, and we will see also how to basically fill in defects, how to basically submit defects, and also how to manage and go back and search for them. Next to this, we will have a deeper dive into parameters. So how can they be helpful? Why would you use them? When would you use them? When wouldn't you use them also? It's very important to know. And as well, basically, where do you store them? Where do you manage them? Like everything else. Um, However, we will also need to show you the application that we're going to use. The demo webshop that is here. This is our basically sample application. It's the same application that you would use as well in the course, the qTest Specialist Level 1 course. This is a fully functional webshop. That means that there are items in it. For example, we can go and search for electronics. There are items in it. You can see they have prices. We have a possibility to log in. I will now do it with my test account. Yeah, you can log in. You have a shopping cart that you can fill in. You can navigate around. You can add something to your shopping cart, and once in the shopping cart, you can actually go through the whole checkout process. Data and everything else is saved in the backlog, in the back end. So this is an actual fully functional web shop. It is functional to a point that even if you put your actual credit card in there, you would be charged. So that's why in trainings we are usually giving fake credit card numbers, a credit card that was created basically ad hoc for this, because in this case we would have to um, we basically had to create a fully functional checkout process, including the payment in the end. And in this way, obviously, we're not charging anything. So you can remove items from the cart like this. And what we will, the section that we will concentrate in during this this session is the books section here. We have different books, as you can see. Some of them have a button, some of them don't. We basically, this was one of the latest section we have added, and there might be some bugs. And basically, we will have to test this section. We will have to basically see whether we can order any book, whether we can go through the checkout, whether we can even log in into the web shop now that this new section has been added. How do we do that? Well, we do that with qTest. Now, as I said, I will start from the very beginning being your releases. However, there is something on top of that, obviously, that is your project. I don't know if you will be in charge of creating a project or not, but we will not cover it in this session. Because you would need admin credentials to do that, and it's usually something that one person in the whole team would have the possibility to do, and not usually the team members. Another thing that unfortunately we will not have time to cover is integrations with different ALMs, that being Jira, Rally, version 1, and many others basically, that integrate with qTest. However, we will not cover how to integrate them. We will not work in an integrated environment. This is for a couple of simple reasons. First of all, there are way too many ALMs we integrate to, and it would take hours to go through all of them. Like, it will be several sessions just to go through all of the different tools and how they integrate differently with Jira. With qTest. Most importantly, though, every tool integrates differently, and that one it's understandable. However, the same tool could integrate in different ways with qTest. That means that if you take two companies and both companies are, for example, using Jira, and they integrate their Jira to qTest, the final result might be slightly different from company A to company B. That's because what you integrate and how you integrate it, it's very, very dependent on what are the security standards in your company, what type of integration you choose to do. So basically, someone might have more details brought into qTest, someone might have fewer details brought into qTest. So it's very difficult to generalize something and say, oh, well, if you integrate it, you have this and you can do that, because it is very case specific. So I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes to talk about this, because I have the feeling a lot of your questions are going to be about this. And unfortunately, every case is special. Every time you basically do something and you integrate a different ALM, it's going to be different than company B that did basically the same integration with the same ALM, but had different security and privacy rules on their mainframe. Okay, now that this is out of the way, we can start getting our hands dirty. As I said, the project is here. You can see here I have many of them, and you basically select it by clicking on the drop-down menu and selecting the project that you need. We are already in the one that we want to be in, and you probably won't have nearly as many as I do, because obviously I have to do different demonstration of different things. You will probably have one or two, maybe three max. So for you, it will be a lot easier to navigate through them. Once you are in the project, you can see it here written as well. Now here is where we're going to create our release. You can do that two ways. You can right click on the project name and click on new release, or you can have it selected and here you have the button. This is very common in every section of qTest. Okay, wherever you go, wherever you click, you will see that basically the actions that you can do by right clicking here are also the same that you can do by the buttons here, basically. Now we'll go my favorite way. That's the right click, and we create a new release. An important thing to remember is that now, for example, I will call this release Sprint 1, and basically that will be its name from now on. You can see it automatically updated. However, I will call it Sprint 1 because in Tricentis we work in an agile manner, and so obviously my different iteration will be sprints. If you work on a waterfall, with waterfall methods, you might have versions or releases and you might call it that way. However, this is just a container. This is basically the biggest. A release is nothing but the biggest container that is available in qTest, beside obviously the project, on which you can then run reports after. Next to obviously naming our release, we will have to select the status. In this case, we can put in progress. A start date, that one we will leave it as it is, and an end date that we will add something in, I don't know, mid-November and end of November. We'll also have to have a description. In this case, we will have to basically have a short description like I did before for you. So yes, we have new books, a new section added to the demo web shop, and we will basically have to test whether all books are there. And are possible, obviously. The release note is many times something on the level of the description as well, just a little bit more technical. In this case, I will just, for the sake of speed, I will leave it not blank, but I will just say new books section added to the demo web shop to be tested. However, usually you will have different, obviously, description and release note. Then once we are ready, once we are satisfied with all this, we can save. Now, we have saved our release, and it's basically being created here. But not only here, it has been created also in our test execution section. So you will see here, there's our project and our release. This will be very important later after we have created our own test cases, and we have basically generated our own test runs. There are other parts of the release that we have to cover now. We have basically worked in the property section here. Now I will basically talk a second about the lower part. First of all, there are resources here. If you click on Add, you basically get a list of the requirements already existing. Now, in this case, basically what the resources are and the release scope is nothing but the requirements. We will cover requirements very soon. However, you will need to know that many times requirements are created before the release is generated like we did now. Because basically for every new piece of the software or every enhancement of the website, you would create a new requirement for testing. So basically you would create a requirement to test the new piece or the new functional. In this case, we also have existing requirements. I kept, for example, the login one, because obviously, even though we have to go inside and test a new functionality, we will have to do so by, first of all, logging in. And we also need to check that adding the new section did not break what was already there. So it's a good idea to add also the login requirement as a basically scope of the release. I'll just select it and click on Add. And there you have it. Now, another part is obviously attachments. Here, you can add anything that you want. Depending on what software you're working on, you might need to add attachments to clarify the release scope, or to basically add resources, then to build up test cases after, or pretty much depending on what you're working on. Another thing that is important to remember, however, is that in the test plan section, that is the section where we are now, you can, besides creating releases, you can create also builds. Builds are created under a release. So basically they are an item that creates under a release. To do that, you do very much like you did before. You right-click on a release and you create a build. What is a build? Well, a build is an organizational structure for your requirements. That means that obviously in a realistic release, you would have several requirements that you need to juggle with and you need to fulfill. Some of them would be about logging in. Some of them, so for example, here you will have all the requirements about logging in and getting your account working. Then you will have all the requirements that are about navigating and ordering from the new section. And then you will have all the requirements that are about the, for example, shopping carts and the checkout process. All of them are, all of them need to be satisfied for this to be a successful run. However, only the central requirements that are the ones around your book section are the ones that have been created new. That means that when you are then here dividing them up, you could divide them by a build that is like, login requirements. You would basically have this one again in progress. Requirements for the login process. And then here in the build scope, you would basically add this particular requirement here, the login. Now, obviously, when you have few requirements, I think, let's say you have one, like now, obviously it doesn't make sense. But even already, if you have 5 or 6, still doesn't make sense, because it's like creating subfolders to organize something that is too small to be organized. However, sometimes you're looking at 30, 40 requirements. At that point, it makes a lot of sense to organize these requirements in builds, because it helps, having an idea of where the release is going and what is, the broader release scope at a glance. However, as I said, we are not going to be needing or using this, and so we can simply delete it. Right click, delete, and I'll basically have deleted this. Another thing important to basically know and remember is that basically once we have added our requirement, this is nothing but a hyperlink. We can click on it and have a look at the requirement. So basically we can see here what the requirement is about, what was created, when was it created by whom, and so on and so forth. This is basically all for the test plan. It's a pretty simple section, so there's not much you can do. However, it's very important to spend your time to set things right in order to set the scope of the whole testing project then right. The next section that obviously we are going to have to cover is the requirements section. Now, for this, basically as I said already, the requirements are setting then the tone of the whole release and the tone of the whole testing. We have already a requirement created, that is the login. However, we still miss, at the very least, one requirement, that is the one that I will close this for now, is the one that basically will have to cover our ability to order a book, for example. So I will basically just right click on the folder here and create a new requirement. Now this requirement, we can call it ordering books. Very simple, very easy. The status for this requirement, I'll put it in progress. You have the new in progress, ready for baseline statuses. These are very, very easy to remember. The priority is very important as well. Must have, should have, nice to have. Must have, for example, this is the very priority of this requirement, is very important, and it's a must that you are going to be able to order a book. Okay, so for example, this would be a must have. If we look at the web shop, a requirement that would be a should have is, for example, being able to add something to your wish list. Obviously, it is a function that you should be able to have. It is something that you should be able to do. However, it's not going to prevent you from buying something if you're not. A nice to have could be, I don't know, being able to change the color of, the background. It is not as impacting on the business as it is, for example, not able to add something to the wish list, so it's something that is a nice to have. Must have, obviously, are login and checkout processes, because otherwise you're not going to get any money out of your web shop. And obviously being able to order the item you want to order. So in this case is a must have. The type in this case is a functional type, and we will assign it to myself. For description, I'm gonna cheat here. I've actually already prepared the description. I'm just gonna copy paste it so you don't have to spend 5 minutes looking at me typing things on screen. I don't think that's a nice webinar. And basically, like here we have now basically filled up our properties for our requirement. Well, I'll actually go real fast through the other fields here. In the resources field, you can attach to the requirement existing test cases. Very much like we attached to the release existing requirement, you can do the same with the existing test cases that are, the next logical step. You can check, what sessions were run on this one. So basically, if we ran already tests to cover this requirement, you could have a look at them, their outcome, and how they were run. Obviously, this is a new requirement. There is no session. However, the most important, arguably the most important part of this page is the bottom. Here you can create test cases directly from your requirement. Okay, why is this important? Because what is a requirement if there is not a test case that covers it? Well, it's unfulfilled. I mean, you can have 100, 1,000 requirements there, but if you don't have test cases that are covering them, these requirements are just hanging in there. They don't basically get fulfilled. You don't know if the application works. And what is important is that you always have at the very least one test case per requirement, I would say. So in this case, you can create at least a shell of the test case, at least a reminder, a shell, a placeholder of that test case immediately, so that you are going to be sure that you have something there and you're not going to forget about it. Additionally, you're going to be sure that in the moment you create this test case, like we're going to do in a second, this test case is going to be linked directly to the requirements. So it's going to appear here into your resources. So now we will call this one the order in books test case. Again, like I did before, I'm going to cheat here, and I am going to add this as a description. I will keep it as manual. You can have it manual, automation, performance, or scenario. We will cover only manual test cases today. And I'm gonna also add a precondition, and I'm gonna explain it in a second. So basically, as a precondition is a set of either settings or basically, things that you need to make sure your machine has or that you have done before you start with that particular test case. So you need to have an internet connection. You need to use Google Chrome. You need to have your Zoom set to 100%, and you need to have Flash Player enabled because we're using older technology on our website. And now we're ready to create it. Very simple as that. And it appears automatically here. That means that now my requirement, in the moment in which I'm saving this requirement, will not only have been created and not only have been filled with information, it also will have already a shell of a test case that covers it. Why am I talking about a shell? Because that test case has not been filled still. We will see it in a second. So now I'm going to save. I'm getting a nice message saying that it was saved successfully, and it's here. As I said before, I'm going to show this for a second. This is an older requirement, for example, that was created quite a long time ago. This requirement has already the test case assigned to it. And we also here have a session run already on this. I'm not going to open it now because it's not going to be of any help at the moment, because you haven't seen yet how to run a session, so showing you the result of it won't really have much of help, won't be helpful for you. So I will just, I just wanted to show you that, yeah, this session was run here. So this basically was all about requirements. A last word, because before we change the section in qTest and we go to the test design, it is very important how you word your description in your requirement. Basically, what you see now on screen is something I've written very quickly. It's something that will not be used in a real environment. However, it is very important that you set your requirement right, because that's going to be the guide for then the test case to be successful, or the test case to be at least created appropriately. So you need to set what your expectations are. So a user should be able to order any of the books present in the books section of the web shop. Here, for example, I would add and edit to the cart successfully. So in this case, you know that you have to be able to navigate to this section. You have to be able to open any of this book and add it to the cart in basically all the way that you feel you want to do. And if any of this part is not satisfied, then obviously that's either a failure or a partial failure for that requirement. So the test design section is the section where we have our test cases stored. You can see that you can see them here on the left, basically. We have the old test case, the one that we were talking about before, the one for our login process. It's here, and this was the old one. Here, however, is the important one, the one that we have created before. We have, basically, as I said before, we have created this one as a shell. And you can see it's particularly different from the other one. This is, pretty well rounded up. This is just a shell of itself. Why did I keep the shell so far? Well, it's just because so we can fill it up together. I can show you how to fill up an existing test case, and then I will show you after basically how do we proceed with it once it's done. However, before we do that, I need to show you how to create a new test case. If you were not, creating it already from your requirements, if you did not already do that, then you could do that like you create anything else in qTest. You can either right-click on the folder here and create a new test case, or select it and then here create new test case. Another thing I wanted to cover is that here we call it new module. In qTest, it's called module, but there's nothing else other than a fancy name for a folder. It is a folder. See it as just a folder, as an organizational unit. It doesn't have anything, any property. Okay, it's just an organizational unit for you to have a more organized workspace here on the left. So this is our test case. As I said, we already created the shell. We have our status. Status is new, can be new, in progress, ready for baseline or baseline. I'll just set it in progress. This is a manual type test case. That's pretty fine. The version, I'll get to it in a second. I'll assign it to myself. And then I will have to use the power of me already having every test step saved in a file aside so that I can do some copy paste. However, the point is we will have to add test steps, because if you were to give this test case to someone, this person would not know what to do with it. Yeah, you can navigate to the books page and select computing and internet to be added to the cart successfully. Okay, that it would be okay. However, we have, this is one book. Okay, so this is one test case that covers one book. What would you do with the other ones? Because I mean, I can already see here there is an issue with this book, but has not been covered by this test case. So we will basically now change this one a bit. Just from computing and internet, we will basically just add a book to be added to the cart successfully. And then after that, we will have to add some test steps here. The first precondition test step, we already added it. And then now we're going to add the second one. The second one, once you are inside here, it would be obviously to navigate to the website. So and then we basically just add here demowebshop.com, and that's it. That's created. The next step obviously would be to log in. However, we already have a test case that logs in. So is this one, okay? Oh, you see, I will have obviously to save. We already have here a test case that logs us in here. And obviously, I forgot that we have already here a step where we are already navigating here. So we basically will have to recall this this test case here. So I will delete now the test step here because we already, as I said, we already have it here. And I will recall my test case. I'll do that so I don't have to add again and again and again and again steps that I have already created and are already part of an existing test case that works. So I will add here the test step, and then from the action menu, I'll just add test case. This will give the available test cases that I can recall. In this case, obviously, is login. I'm selecting it and adding it. This means that now my pre-step obviously is to have all these conditions satisfied. My second step itself is this test case here, this login test case. I'm going to save here. But this is not all of it. We just logged in. We now have to navigate to the books section, for example. I will create this test case, this test step, sorry, and then navigate to the books section. And after this one, obviously, we will have to select a book. In this case, we will select, I would say, the first one. That is computing and internet. Let's see if I can get this one like this. Okay. I will just have to computing and internet and add it to the cart. Okay. And this is our test case created. We, however, are still missing some stuff. That is, we have the step description, but our expected result is empty. So we, like a tester, would not know whether the step he or she performed as being successful or not at this point. So here, as an expected result, for example, we will have to you know, put user successfully navigates to the book section, and here is book is successfully added to the cart. Actually, I'll go step further, and I'll just put the right book is successfully added to the cart. In this way, we basically have a series of steps that we need to follow and a series of expected results that we can, you know, relate to understand whether this test case and this run, when we do it, has been successful or not. Now, this is now done and it's ready technically, and I saved it. However, before we go forward, I wanted to basically point your attention on one additional field that we did not cover already. that is the version. You might have remembered that before, when I went through all the fields, the version was 0.1 because we just created the test case. However, now it's 0.5. This is because we have been doing changes for a total of 4 additional times. So if we took the original one that I have created from the requirement and we modified and clicked on save for 4 additional times. So that means that now we are in version 0.5 or 0.5. This is important because then you can, in theory, go back to the history and see what each version looked like. So you can expand here and see what this version looked like and who did what and when. In the same way, from here, you can do a lot of things. You can see comments if there is any, attachments if there is any, sessions if any session has been already run on this test case, and you can see which requirements are attached, or to which, in theory, actually, to which requirements this test case has been attached to. However, there is one additional thing that you might have noticed from the beginning. This test case, as it is, has not this green check, very much like the login test case has. Because if we go here, you can see there's a green check here on top, and we are at version 6.0. Now, this is because we have been approving this test case already. It has been already written already, and we have approved it already. So we will have to do the same now with this test case that we have just created. Because you cannot create runs. You cannot run a test case that has not been approved. Obviously, many times the person that creates the test case won't have the accesses to also approve it. However, in this case, I have, and I'm gonna fake that I am my own manager and I can approve my own test cases. In order to do that, you can simply click on approve here, and basically what will happen is that you get prompt, test case has been approved, version has been changed to the next whole number, so in this case 1.0, and here we have ordering books. Another way that you can approve things, and actually arguably the most spread way to approve things, is via query. So in order to show you how the query works, I'm going to make a small change. Just add 3 dots here and click on save. Now I've made changes to this test case. So the version went up to 1.1, and that tells me already that this test case has now been approved now. And you can see the green check here disappeared. Now, in order, obviously, when you have like now only one test case, you will not want to run a query to go and approve the test case. That's a lot of time that you're basically wasting. However, we will now pretend that we have dozens of test cases to approve that are part of a repository with dozens of other test cases that have been approved. We could go one by one and check them one by one and approve them one by one, but this is very time consuming. Now, what we could do is a data query, running a data query, basically. Running a data query means that you are basically using the querying engine of qTest, that is a particularly powerful one, to basically search for, in this case, we will search for unapproved test cases, and we will basically try to find the ones that have not been approved, and we will then approve them in bulk. So first of all, we will add a name here as unapproved test cases, then a criteria. In this case, would be approved, is approved, an operator that equals, and the value here equals to no. In this case, when I am running, anything that has not been approved will be displayed, and here is our test case. This is as easy as it gets, basically. You have a list of criteria here. You've seen it before. There are quite a lot of them. You have an operator that is either equal or not equal to, and then you have a value that can be, depending on what criteria you search, the value can be binary, like a yes or no, or it can be a value containing a particular value. Now, the good thing is that by running queries, as I said, you can do bulk operations on your test cases. You can do a bulk approval. You can do you can batch edit, batch approve, or batch convert. If we wanted to batch edit something, for example, we could replace some of the fields. So we could replace, for example, the name. We could edit or replace text. We could replace the status, the type, who's assigned. We could assign all of them to someone. We could replace the description. So basically, a bit of everything we could do. However, what we are interested in now, it's a bulk or a batch approval. So we will do that. We're not sending out any notification email. We will confirm it. It will take a second, and now it's done. We'll just get out of the query. We will close. To get out of the query, just click on closed. However, you could also save your query if you think that you're going to need it in the future. That will basically appear here in unapproved test case. Like for example, here I already have some queries that have been run. Approved equal no. Now obviously we have nothing in there. Or you have some system standard queries, for example, approved test cases, and there we have our 2 test cases that have been approved. When you save something, it will be saved here, after which you can either drag and drop it in the team queries, and your whole team will be able to see your query that you created. Maybe it's a particularly complex one and you want to share it. Or it can stay directly in your queries and you will be the only one having access to it. That depending on what you want to do with it. So now we've closed and we will have to refresh a bit. It's always a best practice to refresh here because we've done changes and then we've closed something, and I want to make sure that these changes have been taken. Now, the next logical step would be to create a test run out of this. However, before doing that, I'd like to point out that there is a problem with this, or a small issue with this test case. This test case is one test case that basically covers one book only. This one. You can run it as many times as you want, and that the person will have no choice because it's here. And he or she will have to always add the same book. And if it works, well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you're not really testing the whole of the page. Obviously, one option would be to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different test cases for 6 different books. That's a lot of manual work, however. Already for 6 of them, it's a lot of manual work. An additional way to do, and the actual smart way to do, is to use something called parameters. Now, we will cover them today, now, and we'll go down a little bit into details on those, so pay attention. However, first of all, I would like to explain, what is a parameter? Why would you use that? When would you use that? And when wouldn't you use them? So for example, in this case, a parameter would come very handy because a parameter will contain all the names of the books here. We will create it containing all the names of the books, and it will be basically a variable that we add to this step. Instead of the hard-coded name of the book here, we will add something that at every run will change, and it will give us basically coverage on every single book that we have in the shop. I'll show you basically how to create it, and then we will see how it's used. So you create it by going here into the 9 dots and click on parameters to bring you to the parameter part of qTest. And as qTest is very, very complex and difficult software, we have a big create button here on top so that you are not going to be lost when you want to create something. and this here. There are very few things to add to create a parameter. First of all, is an identifier. This identifier has to be unique. I will call this books names, and I will basically just put a very short description as this is the list of the books available on the web shop, and that's it. So basically we have created our description, our identifier. Now we need to add the values. We can add them from here, plus value. We can add them in two ways. We can either one by one and then click on OK, or we can add them in bulk by just clicking enter, basically putting a new row between them, like this. I've obviously prepared them in advance in a little notepad I have here. Once you click on OK, each line will basically create a new parameter. Here we have the 6 values. Here we have 6 books. All's fine, all looks good. And then we click on save. Now our parameter has been saved. How do we use it though? Well, very simple. We have to basically go here and change this. We delete the hard-coded title of the book. And we just recall something very much like you would do by tagging somebody on Slack or on a Facebook conversation, or I think even Instagram works that way. So it's the universal sign for recalling something, that is the @ and then we need our identifier that we had before, and this is the book's name. When we go, then it's gonna be here. Select the book's name. This one will be changed when we are basically creating the test runs, and add it to the cart. I'm gonna save it, and then I'm gonna approve it, and then I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen next. When we are generating the test run, this single test case here, something happened, it did not get approved. Sorry, a second. That's when I told you that you will need to refresh often. The green check did not appear from here, and then when I went to click on approve again, it told me that it was approved already. Just the little green checkbox did not appear. However, when we're going to generate our test runs, this single test case will generate actually 6 separated test runs, each of which will have a different book name on step 3. So basically, the first test run will have computing and internet. The second one will have copy or computing and internet. The third fiction, and then fiction EX, and so on and so forth. But you will see it when you are when you're going to work basically with it. So this is a good example of when we would have to use a parameter. When we would use a parameter, you don't have to. You can go the long way and create 6 different test cases. However, this is a lot faster. Another example of when you would use parameters is, for example, if we were to test the login functionality. Here we would have to obviously use 2 sets of parameters, one for the usernames and one for the passwords. Now, you can already see here that we did that already. And if we were to go here and search for it, login passwords and login usernames, we could go inside and see that we have 4 passwords here, and we would have 4 usernames here. Now, you can use 2 of them in tandem, like we do here. This means that we did not have to create, in this case, 4 different test cases with 4 different sets of credentials, but 1 test case. It also means that when we are going to generate our test runs for this, we will be able to choose how do we combine these usernames and password. And a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm gonna do it. I'm generating my test run. I have to select which release I'm gonna target with this. This is the only release we have, so I'm going to target this one. And then here, I'm basically going to indicate how I want to create what is called a run data. As we have our parameters here, qTest understands that, okay, we have to ask you how to generate this data. And in this case, I will ask for randomized data, and I will ask for example, only 4 combinations, and I can also preview the data. So a number of data combination is 4, user 2, password 2, user 3, password 3, user 4, password 4, user 1, password 1. Or I can create unique combinations and have 16 of them and try each and every possible combination here of logins. In this case, obviously, I will have 4 correct combinations that, for example, would be user 2, password 2, like this one in this lane here. But at the same time, I will have 12 wrong ones because, as you can see here, for example, we have user 1, password 2. This is not going to work. So I'll go back to the ones that work, and I know that they work. User 1, password 1, user 4, password 4, user 2, password 2, user 3, password 3. And I will click on add, and the test run will have been generated. I can close here. I can go to the test execution, expand. Yeah, expand here, and my 4 test runs have been created with a single click of mouse. If we go inside and check them, like everything, you can just click on and you will be able to check it. Here we will have basically, you can go to the test case details, and you can see that in the test steps, in this test run, we'll have user 1, password 1 to be used. So this is how a parameter works. It's basically a container for data that is meant for us to save time. Basically needed to be able to save manual work. Because, for example, especially if you're testing a login functionality, you might want to test that with a particularly big set of username and passwords, and creating manual test cases, like manually creating manual test cases for each set of username and password can be very time consuming, while you could have a machine just randomizing all data and then you will try whatever you want to try, because when you are testing a login, you not only have to test that the right password lets you in, but also that the wrong password doesn't. So this is how we generate test runs. It's a particularly quick way. If I'm going back here and I'm also having this other test case, I can create test run here in this very same way. Here it will be a little bit more complex because we have a series of parameters to use. In this case, obviously, we could do like we did before, randomize data and select the unique values only. But as you see, we would basically select only 4 of them. Would be the right set of username and password and a different book each time. However, in this case, we will cover only 4 out of 6 books. This is not good. A way that we can do is we can select our 6 books here, preview the data, and then we'll manually basically change here. Okay, add a second here. Okay, user 2, user 3. Password 1, password 1, password 1, that's fine. And then again here will be For example, so we have computing and internet, copying of computer and internet, and fiction, so that we have fiction, EX here. The other book would be health and book and science. Health book. So now we have different sets of logins with different books, and then we click on add. Go to our text execution, wait a second for it to refresh. And there we have our 6 additional runs. Now, as we have the login already covered in these runs here, the ones that we have created before, we don't need them anymore. So we can actually just delete them like this. Very quick, very easy. We'll go and open this run, for example, here, going to the test case details, and we can see which steps here again. User 1, password 1, and is asking us to check the computing and internet. Now, I hope it's clear now why would you use, obviously, these parameters. I would suggest, for example, that you use it if you have anything more than 5 or 6 elements in the page that you need to switch between. Obviously, if you have 1 or 2, it might not be worth it because it obviously takes more time to create the parameter than to create an additional line, maybe in the test case. However, when you go up to realistic numbers, many times, especially for this type of website, like a web shop, you definitely want to use the parameters. Now, we have our test runs here, and we're basically ready to run them. To do basically a run, we can select one test run, for example, in this case, and then we simply have the run button. We have different options, obviously, when we want to run something. If we click on run directly, it will basically choose automatically the first option to run with the test pad only. If we have Explorer installed, we can run it with either Desktop Explorer or Web Explorer. Another possibility is to do a quick run. This we will cover it in a minute or so, but because first of all, I want to do a normal run. So basically, with a quick run, you can change a couple of things, like the status of the run. You can add some comment, or you can use it as a way to add a defect. However, it's not as complete. Basically, what we'll do now is that we will use the testpad only. Testpad is basically a notepad that opens next to you, where you can check what you have to do, what's the status of each step, and basically what is that you know, in which part are you at the moment. So for example, if I were to open things next to each other like this, I can go into my demo web shop and log out. That's probably important. And then I would log in back, user 1 at sample.test. And the password would be password 1. This one, I don't need it. Thanks, Google. And for example, now this has been passed. This has been passed. All good so far. Navigate to the books section. I'll do that. Oh, passed. Select the book name, computing and internet, and add it to the cart. I can either click on it and open it, or I can add it to the cart directly. I'll try directly, and it's in my shopping cart. I actually have 2 because probably my shopping cart still had 1 from before. And this one has passed. All of it. No issue then. I'll bring this one in the center and expand it a little bit. It's all done, all passed. I click on save. Oh, forgot the status. We'll set the status of all the of the overall run, and I set obviously the status of each individual test step. I click on save. I didn't have any planned time. It took me about 2 minutes. That's fine. And this is done. Now I can close this. I can reopen qTest. And now this is passed. So next, I wanted to, so basically we passed this one. And next I wanted to show you one where we probably going to have some difficulties. To do that, I'll very quickly just basically restart this whole thing. I want to log out. I want to check which books don't have, for example, a button here, FictionEX and Compy of Computing. Okay, so I'll go back to the main page. Let me see, let's say this one. I can have a look, as I showed before, I can have a look at the test steps here. The FictionEX, this is perfect. So we will run this one now. So I'll very quickly run this, and I'll run it like before with the testpad. This testpad opens. I'll just put it here on the side. I'll just put it here on the side. I will add this one here. Sorry for the mess, guys, but okay. So we have navigated here already, and we passed it. We will log in user2 at sample.test and password 2. Well, let's log in with that. User2 at sample.test and password 2. It's very possible. Oh, okay. I made a typo. I was about to say it's very possible that one of these password combination won't work. I don't remember honestly. But no, this one worked. So we just put past here. Then navigate to the book section, and this one has passed. And then select the book name FictionEX and add it to the cart. FictionEX doesn't have a button here. I can select it, and still doesn't have a button here. Okay, then this one is failed. Oh, wrong one. This one has failed here. Now has failed. Fine. What I have to do though is that it has failed because something is missing, and so that means I will submit a defect. Submit a new one from here. So summary of this defect: add to cart button missing for FictionEX book. If this is the submitter, that's me. It affects this print severity. I would actually say major. Again, the release is that. Oh no, sorry. This is only for the fixed. Once it's fixed, the developer would actually put that one. The priority, I would put a high priority because, as I said, we can't buy that item. In this case, it would be, let's see, failure to follow procedure or process. We already have the module that it affects. We can assign it to someone. In this case, I'll assign it to myself as well. I'm everything here. I'm the tester, the manager, and and the developer. Status is new because we haven't saved it yet. Type is a bug. Yes. Target release is always our release. Reason is additional info needed. Otherwise, you can have something else. Here, we can go for, well, we'll leave it as it is. Category, design UI. In this case, I would say target date. This would be, if we have one, a target date for completion. At the moment, I'll leave it as it is. in here, basically what we have to do is we add a line in the end saying that the add to cart milestone was missing, hence I cannot order the book. This is a very simplistic type of description, but it will do. And now we have added our bug here. This step has failed. And now I will select the status here. I will select passed, and I know it's the wrong one because, let's press it. I'll select passed here, and I know it's the wrong one because I then want to show you what happens after. Skip this. And this has been saved successfully. I'll open it back. Now, first of all, what we can see is that a bug icon here has lighted up, and that means that we have one bug here. The other problem, however, is that this one here has the wrong status. So to fix that, I don't have to reopen everything like I did before. And now here I am just selecting this one, selecting the status. I'll put it on failed, and then I'll click on OK. Now here I'm refreshing the page, and if everything goes right, it should have changed the status to failed. Yeah. So in this way, you can change the status without having to reopen the testbed like we did before. Now, we've seen how to, just to recap, we've seen how to create our releases, we've seen how to create our builds, our requirements, our test cases, we've seen how to approve them and how to use parameters. We've seen how to generate our test runs. We've seen how to run them with our testbed. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that much time left, so I cannot dive too much into defects and whatnot, but I will show you a little bit of it. Now we have load up a defect, it's here. We can click on it and actually get a little summary. We can click on the defect and it will open the defect like we did before. Here it is. And it opens that in the defect section of qTest. I'll close this, and if I open all defects here, you can see all the defects that were logged in this particular project. We test those books a lot, as you can see, and we seem like we're not. It seems like we're not learning from our mistakes, as it always is the same books, the same thing missing. But yeah, here you have an overview of all the defects. You can run queries as well, as you can see here. You know, you can check who is the assignee. You can change it here. You can see all of them. You can see the ones that are assigned to you. In this case, you see it's all these four here. It's really good because you can immediately at a glance see the status here and the priority, as well as the severity. So you have at a glance the status of the you know, highest priority and severity in defects. You know, you can see whether they're still new progress or whatnot. So this is basically the defect view for your project. Now, one of the things that I have shown you, but I didn't stop to talk about, is that when you run something, when you run an execution, you can run it in a testbed only. However, you could run it with testbed and Desktop Explorer and testbed and Web Explorer. Now, these two are two applications. These are the Explorer application that you can download from the resource section here. You can download the plugins. You can see here, Desktop Explorer and Web Explorer, and the integration plugins. Now, this allows you to have a lot more control of how the interactions are working. Now, I have Web Explorer installed on my computer, and I will give you a quick glance of how it looks like. Oh, sorry, wrong. Explorer. You can see it here on top. Now, it will open my testbed as usual. However, next to it, here, it will open my session, basically. This is Web Explorer. This is basically a screenshot type of um, program. It will keep on taking screenshots as I go along, and I will show you. We basically record every interaction I have. You can see here the camera is taking little screenshots. I'll go to books. I am missing my testpad here next to me, and I will not log in with this. I just for the sake of, I have to go for science, the science book. I'll add it to cart. Then I'll go and check my shopping cart. Oh, and there it is. And then I'll just stop. Once I stop, my qTest Explorer session will open. Now this is basically an exploratory session, as you see here. It took a screenshot every time I had an interaction with a page. So you can see here, clicked here, then, well, clicked somewhere here. This is a scroll down button for sure. Then I clicked on add to cart, and then I checked the cart, and then I went up and I clicked to close the whole session. Now, this is obviously a lot more than what you could do with the testpad, where you could just add a comment, you could, change basically the statuses and whatnot. That doesn't mean you don't have to do it now, because you still have it here. This session here is not going to tell you obviously whether the test has passed or not, but you will basically have to save it and then attach it, and it will be linked to your run. In this way, you will basically have more information about this. So let's open our testpad here. I'll just close it as it is. Don't really need it. This was just as a show. Now, we have covered basically everything that I wanted to cover. This is just obviously a initial look at it. There is no way that in such a short time I could do too much, because unfortunately there is a lot to unpack here. If you want more information, if you want more detailed look to this, I would suggest you take our course, the qTest Specialist Level 1. It covers basically every single thing that I told you here. As well, it will give you an idea of how to work in ALM integrated environments. Like we will use, for example, for that course, we use an example with Jira. In this way, you can already, get a look and feel idea of how it's going to look like. Because let's be honest, most people will use qTest. They use it when it's integrated with an ALM. Nevertheless, everyone needs to be aware of how to do these things manually, because you will have to. Even if your qTest instance is integrated with an ALM, there will be always an amount of manual work that you will have to perform. You might be lucky and be able to bring in 90% of all the artifacts that you need to complete your testing project. However, the remaining 10% will have to be created manually. Some other important things to remember are that qTest Manager is just one of the possible products. As you can see here, we have several videos that are spanning all of the other products, and I would highly recommend that you go and check those. We have videos on parameters that go a lot more in depth and show also how to use a data set, for example. That is something that we did not go into too much today. Actually, we did not go at all into today, because that's its whole rabbit hole of cases and how would you use it and why. We have videos on flood, insights, pulse, and launch. Each of these each of these tools are basically explaining functions that are pivotal to a testing project, and we have videos that are basically teaching you how to use each and every of them. So go and check the Tricentis Academy YouTube channel for more information. I would like to close this session with picking a couple of questions. I've had my colleagues answering your questions live while I'm delivering this this presentation. However, there were a couple of questions that I would like to single out because I think they are important for everyone. Yeah, we will have a look at them. Let me see. So the first one that I can see that is very important and is something I haven't covered yet is, can items, for example, requirements, be imported somehow? Of course they can. From here, you can see that here on top, we have our import from Excel button. That means that you can import from an Excel file. Obviously, you cannot import from any Excel file, no matter the formatting or whatnot. You can download a sample import template that can show you how to best optimize your data for the system, to give the best chances to the system to properly read those. And obviously, each file can maximum be 10 megabyte in size. However, you can import requirements. You can import test cases as well. So there is quite a lot that you can do. So yeah, to answer, yes, you can import items somehow. So mostly from Excel. How many parameters can you use in a test case? Well, I don't know if there is a limit, honestly. I did not test that. I don't think there is a hard limit for parameters. However, I'll look into that. If the answer is not, there is no limit, I will not follow up. So if you get no email from me, there is no limit. If you get an email that is a retcon, then maybe there is a limit. However, I'll have to double check because it's something I honestly did not look into. So where can I find information on the supported ALMs? Well, on our website. On Tricentis.com, you can find the product section, and you can just search for qTest, and we are advertising which are the most compatible ALMs. I have to mention, obviously, that Jira is the #1 ALM for us. We have, or at least is the one we integrate the best with, as we have live integration. Some other ALMs have very similar integrations to Jira that are very seamless, and some others, again, have more superficial integrations, I would say, that basically consist on simple data dumps from the ALM to qTest or vice versa. However, yeah, as I said, all the information you need can be found on tricentis.com. Also, you can contact us if you have additional questions and you couldn't find an answer there. The last question I wanted to do for today is, what are the prerequisites for using qTest Explorer? So, this is a bit of a complex question. To use Web Explorer, the one that you have seen me using, there are no big prerequisites. It can be used on every operating system as long as you are using a browser that is supported from us. To use Desktop Explorer, however, you will have to have a Windows operating system. We don't have an installer for macOS at the moment, so unfortunately, that is a restriction that is on that. However, Web Explorer is more than capable of doing the job. The main difference between them, however, is that with Web Explorer, you can record every single interaction that happens on the browser the extension is installed into. That means that, for example, here I would be able to record every single interaction that happens within this Google Chrome instance. With Desktop Explorer, on the other hand, you can record everything that happens on your computer. Every single thing that happens on the computer, you can record it. So if you are developing an application that is not browser-based, then maybe you might want to have Desktop Explorer integrated so that you can do exploratory testing also on applications that are installed on your computer. And that was it. Thanks everyone for the attendance. Thanks all of you for all the questions and the attention that you pay to my session. Has been an honor to deliver it for you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I'll be replying to some of the questions that you have if we didn't get to reply to them yet in written form. And I am wishing all of you a great day and continuation of week. Goodbye.